And it looks like we are almost there. They're probably going to hear us now, even though I can't see it on. There we go. All right. Well, welcome back to another Facebook Live on the Change Physician. If you are seeing me on the Challenge Doctor, this is a cross post from the Change Physician. If you don't know what the Change Physician is all about, you can go to thechangephysician.com and learn a little bit more about my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, and myself, Melissa Cady. And we do our Friday faves to share some of our favorite things over the past week and then discuss a little bit about an episode or two that happened the last week or the upcoming episodes for the podcast, which can be found in all venues. We'd love for you to subscribe, share, comment, rate, anything you're willing to do to give us some feedback. And what's that?
I love that. Whatever you want to do, just do it.
Like, just do it. We want some feedback. Yeah. So I guess let's just tap into what happened over the past week, Kevin. Do you want to, or do you want me to start it?
Well, I'm all ready because while you're doing that, I got my stuff done.
Yay! So you shared.
Shocking here. So let's see, the 14th, because we have this change. So I'm kind of struggling with the Friday to Monday kind of thing. But
yes.
What was published this last week was a host chat on what things really matter or which things really matter, which was a discussion of what's important. And I enjoyed that, where, what is important to us? Like, what is it that we should be focusing on? Is it really the things, or is it something more? Or if it is a thing, what's important about that thing that actually makes it meaningful and matterful to you? Then the other episode was, are you frugal or are you cheap? And that was a fun one because we had the words of wisdom of Dr. Cady in there on defining the difference between frugal and cheap, which I was absolutely astounded about. And I think I said it like 42 times. I'm like, oh my God, I just love this so much. Because there is a pronounced difference between being frugal and cheap. And in this era, depending on where you're ghosting and people are, sort of this extreme thing on trying to get yourself financially independent. There's the extreme people who, like, I don't know, don't use any water in their house and they wear one set of clothes for a week so they don't have to pay for something. And then the other side, there's the people that are just like, wow, make money, make money. And we should, if someday we should do an episode on it, because it is kind of an interesting kind of dichotomy there. But you don't necessarily want to be cheap. And anyway, I love that episode because I just loved how you define the difference between frugal and cheap. And then finally, we had the fabulous Dr. Tate. Dr. Eric Tate was back on the podcast for our latest episode, which is why personal development is valuable to physicians. We can almost consider that a physician development. And really the idea of becoming a better human will make you a better doctor in a lot of ways. And so he talked on some of his favorite sources, things that he had, how he has gone into that route and how that's impacted his life. And we sort of reflected on there. And that's again, another really good episode. And it kind of makes me remember something that's called the curse of knowledge. I remember the curse of knowledge, where it's like we forget what we don't know. Mm-hmm. And so all the stuff that you're kind of living, eating, and breathing, and you just assume everybody else doesn't understand it. And a lot of people still don't understand the concepts of personal development. Like, what does that even mean? Mm-hmm. And I think if people listen to that episode and kind of hear the depth that's in there and kind of feel the importance, it may change any impressions. If you have an impression about personal development, maybe a negative one, it may change that. And if you're not aware of what that even means, I would highly recommend people to listen to that episode, because truly that will impact growing yourself as a human. Will have probably the most pronounced impact on yourself, on your family members, on your relationship, on your professional development than anything else that you can do. So great episode, great discussion. It's always awesome to have Eric on the podcast. So that's what we did.
Yeah. And he does internal medicine once a week and has all these other things that he does from a personal development, financial development standpoint, that it's just, it's incredible the fund of knowledge he has in that realm, and in a very pragmatic, I think, approach, and how he merges it even with how he practices medicine. Mm-hmm. So definitely encourage you not just to watch that episode, but go back to our prior episodes. In fact, we should just state which episode that is, because he was kind of one of the first ones in episode 4 and episode 8. Yeah, you definitely have to. Oh, and even episode 16. So he's got all kinds of knowledge in different realms. So definitely tap in. If you don't know his story, I would definitely find the other episodes with Dr. Tate. Shout out to Dr. Tate. Thank you.
Shout out to Dr. Tate. Yeah, we love all our guests, but obviously we love Dr. Tate because
he keeps coming on back, and he doesn't mind us.
He doesn't mind it. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll come on and talk to you guys. All right, awesome.
Yeah, it's been really awesome. Well, I guess, what is your favorite thing over the past week? Friday Faves, here we go.
Well, yeah, I had a number of different favorite things. One, I'm just gonna shout out to sleep, because they have a long history of chronic insomnia since about medical school. And it's interesting because if you kind of shift your perspective, if you're shifting on all the times that you don't sleep well, then your brain gets used to going, well, I'm going to pay attention to this and I'm going to notice when it was. So I've made a point over the last couple of weeks to actually circle the date and put in big green letters on my calendar on the wall, like great sleep night. The weirdest thing is you start doing that and you start noticing those nights that you had really good sleep. So one of my favorite things was last night I had a really good sleep. It was awesome. Like 8 hours, which doesn't really happen very often. I'm not even sure if I may have woke up a stir a little bit, but I didn't even notice it. So that was awesome. The other thing is I was reading a post about journaling, which is something that I've always wanted to do. I have done it a couple times in the past, probably about 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And then I started again when I was deployed in 2008, and that didn't end very long. But it's another thing that becomes almost like a record, where I think probably was commented on my daughter because she journals. And I looked, I'm like, are you journaling? She goes, actually, she goes, I'm just writing on what I need to do today. And I'm like, well, at least you have it, right? You have a record of what you did. And then I'm thinking, well, the shoulds, I need to journal, blah, blah, blah. So what I did is, I'm like, okay, you just need to do it. So I pulled this out, which is a journal that my sister made. She sent them out to us because we do a vacation to the Oregon coast every year. And this is the picture that she took. And I started. And I just started writing. And I thought it was very apropos, given how we're transitioning the podcast into more of this personal development space. And it just gave me a chance to say, I'm just going to do this. It's a process, as long as I'm doing it every day, and see where it goes from there. And even with this first one, I started breaking things down. I'm using topics like the health, wealth, relationships, and self. I'm looking at these are actually things I can look at every day. So that's going to be my newest thing. And hopefully I keep talking about it on Friday Faves, because if I talk about it on Friday Faves, it means I'm still doing it. And then for the third thing, I'm going to go back to the thing I've been talking about all year, is my freaking awesome strength training. I love it so much. And it's my favorite thing. And I love those kettlebells. And I'm like, I'm up to the 50 pounder, which is so fun. So it's been fun. Yeah. Those are my couple of my favorite things this week, outside of the things like family and friends and all that stuff. How about you?
Well, I need to get at least one kettlebell, just because the way it's made, that kind of makes it fun to just swing that thing with some squats and stuff. But I do have those adjustable dumbbells, which I've been starting to pick up my strength training, trying to take it up a notch. So that's one of my favorite things this past week, is I've been consistently every day. There's been several reasons why I've just not been in the swing of things. However, another favorite thing is that, so I hadn't seen my parents since March of last year, before literally when we called off our trip to Australia and New Zealand, because my husband was paying attention to what was going on in the world and said, I don't think we should go. So as much as I wanted to resist that and say, oh, the immune systems are great, we will fight it off and all this stuff. And then I finally realized the gravity of what was going on. So that was the last day I'd seen my parents, actually Friday the 13th, March 13th. And then I drove back to Austin, and I hadn't seen them since then. And so this past weekend, we actually went to visit my parents. So my husband and my husband hadn't seen them since the holidays in 2019. So, so this was a big deal. And so this past weekend. It was really nice to be able to do that. And we reserved a theater for watching, I think it's the Wrath of Men. I'm trying to remember the actor. I'm so bad with actors' names. Bald white guy. It's not Kevin Cuccaro. Anyway, it was a good movie. So we invited some friends. Almost everyone had been vaccinated. We had the whole theater to ourselves. So invited a few friends, close family, and enjoyed that because it was Mother's Day. So it was actually on Mother's Day. It was surprisingly super quiet in the theater. So it wasn't that expensive. It was kind of a cool thing that, to first come to a theater after all this pandemic, and have it to yourself, it was kind of a great way to do it. So that's a great idea. I love that idea. And and support the theater. Did they post that on the theater thing or whatever? No, I just went to go see what was there. And then it said, you can have a private party. Oh, very neat. And yeah, so it, in all honesty, the cost was with tax and everything, it was like $160. You could have up to 20 people. Whoa. Which is really reasonable. Yeah. Of course, you're buying your little, your such healthy theater type snacks. But we hadn't done that in forever. So that was great to get people out. And even for some that had children that couldn't, normally go, and they had a free moment to get away from the kids and go to the theater to do adult things. So yeah, that was kind of my favorite. So, we had a kind of a busy weekend, but it was good to get up there and then have that theater experience and then get back in the swing of doing some workout. So I guess those would be my three. Right on. Well, those are good. Those are good. Yeah. So what do we have upcoming? We have us talking. We like talking. We do like talking. Should I say what the question's going to be on the episode? Sure. Well, yeah, actually, let's not talk about it, but just say what the question is, because then people can reflect on that while the episode is before it comes out. Yeah. So I think I might say it wrong, but would you like you if you met you? Is that the right question? Well, if you met you, would you like you? Or, it's all the same. Okay. But the question being, if you met you, would you like you? Sounds simple. Think about it. Let us know. And we did a whole episode on that. And yes, we get a little personal. But I think it's a great question to ask yourself for many reasons. Yes. Good to reflect and be honest and be aware. And we have the other, our deep dive on the episode with Eric. So that's it. Having the guests, and then we spent some time afterward to kind of go over a little bit more. And I think you're going to find a lot of that more in the future, folks, is going to try to do a little bit more in-depth on some of these episodes. So if we have a guest on, we're doing the discussion with them. Then we're going to do a follow-up where we sort of deconstruct that a little bit more and talk about the impact on myself and Melissa, and hopefully get a little bit deeper knowledge, or a little bit kind of dissect it, pull out. Maybe you'll find some nuggets in there, because sometimes when you're doing these interviews, you can do the interviews and you can pull out some stuff. And oftentimes I know I get this way. You're listening to a podcast and you hear this stuff and you're like, man, I wish they had talked about this more. I really want to learn about that, which is good because it encourages you to go out and learn more. But we're going to also go back and kind of talk about it among ourselves and hash it out. So join that. You can be a fly on the wall for those future episodes. And in particular, this one with Dr. Tate, where we talk about, what is personal development to us and the importance of it in a little bit more detail than we talked about with Eric. So fun stuff. Yeah. And just to reinforce what you said, it's kind of like, even when you read a book, like it might be a great book and you get a certain feeling out of it and, say it's great, you might learn something, but if you never go back to, whether you highlight stuff or you just go back and kind of skim it again to kind of reinforce what you learned, I think that's part of the way that we want to process these things and reinforce the learning, is that we, because I think when we talk about personal development and making a change in our life, you have to be able to look back and reflect and learn and really kind of seal it in. So I think I think that kind of practice is what we want to share with people. I think it's important because it's easy for us to get busy and just move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Hear the pithy little title or hear the pithy little quote and say, oh, that's deep. And then keep on doing the same old things that we always do. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, why don't you take us out then?
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode. Well, not episode, but the Friday Faves, the return of Friday Faves, where we talk about our favorite things. If you're interested in listening to more of our podcast episodes, you can go either to thechangephysician.com and sign up for our email list there where the community is, or you can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever other ones. There's all these stupid podcast networks, but and whatever your Google podcast, whatever your favorite store is, if you look for the Change Physician podcast, you'll find us there. You'll join us on those episodes, and we will see you next Friday for Friday Faves.
See you later.